My boyfriend got his biopsy results back, possible tumor, but probably nothing, and told me my family, not you, and I'm not his emotional safe space. After years of excusing his silence, I'm finally realizing how shut out I really am. My boyfriend and I have a complicated history from before we officially started dating, and I think a lot of what we're dealing with now stems from that. Over time, he's developed this habit of isolating himself more and more, but it's not just physical distance, it's emotional too. He doesn't really let anyone in anymore, including me. And when I say he doesn't communicate, I don't mean he hides things or lies. I mean he literally doesn't tell me anything. His thoughts, his feelings, his needs, he just doesn't express them directly. Instead, he'll make vague comments or drop hints and expect me to piece everything together. Or he'll say it's just common sense, and that I should already know what he means without him having to spell it out. I've tried bringing this up to him multiple times. I've told him that I feel like there's a pattern where I'm constantly guessing what he wants or needs, and it leaves me feeling confused and disconnected. But whenever I do, he doesn't really address the pattern itself. He just focuses on whatever specific situation I'm bringing up in that moment, like it's a one-time issue instead of something that keeps happening. To explain what I mean, there's one example that really stuck with me, even though it seems small on the surface. We both enjoy art, so one day I invited him over and suggested we draw each other. I was genuinely excited about it. It felt like a really sweet, intimate way to connect. Just the two of us, sitting there, observing each other, creating something together. I put so much care into my drawing. I kept looking up at him, studying his features, trying to capture him as best as I could. Every time our eyes met, I got butterflies. It felt meaningful to me, like one of those quiet, special moments you don't forget. And honestly, the sketch turned out really good, one of the best I've done in a while. When I showed it to him, he said, "Wow, that's nice," and I could tell he meant it. Then he showed me his. And it looked nothing like me. Not even close. It was kind of scary looking, honestly, but also funny in a weird way. So I laughed, because that's what it felt like he was going for at first. But the thing is, he's actually a really talented artist. I know what he's capable of, and this just didn't match that at all. At first, I thought maybe he was just joking around, being playful. That would have made sense for him. But then he explained why. He said he had been trying to draw me in an anime style, but I kept looking down at my sketchbook instead of at him, so he got annoyed and just gave up. He literally said, "I was like, nah, not doing it. She's getting whatever this is now." I was honestly taken aback, because in my mind, the solution was so simple. All he had to do was say, "Hey, can you look up at me for a bit?" I would have done it immediately. I was looking up at him, just not constantly, because I was also focused on my own drawing. So I told him that. I said, "You could have just asked me to look up longer. I was already looking at you anyway." And his response? "Nope. That's common sense. If I'm drawing you, you should know to look up longer than that." That's where the frustration really hit me. Because even if it is common sense to him, why is it so hard to just say something? Why let yourself get annoyed in silence instead of communicating? It would have taken 2 seconds, and the whole experience could have stayed positive instead of turning into something confusing and slightly hurtful. I tried to explain that to him. I said, "Even if it feels obvious to you, all you had to do was ask, and it would have solved the problem." But he just doubled down. "Nope. Common sense." And that's how it usually goes. It's not really about the drawing. It's about the pattern. He expects me to read between the lines, to anticipate his needs, to just know what he wants without him having to say it. And when I don't, instead of communicating, he gets frustrated or withdraws or turns it into a joke. Meanwhile, I'm left feeling like I'm constantly failing some invisible test I didn't even know I was taking. I want to connect with him. I try to create moments where we can share something meaningful, like that drawing session. But instead of meeting me halfway, it feels like he shuts down or keeps me at arm's length unless I magically get everything right without being told. Fast forward to now, and things have only gotten more confusing for me emotionally. About 2 weeks ago, he randomly called me. That alone caught me off guard, because he almost never calls. I picked up immediately, feeling this sudden rush of excitement. I thought maybe, finally, he was reaching out because he missed me or just wanted to talk. At first, it felt normal. He asked about my day, checked in on me, made a few jokes like he usually does. It felt light and easy, and for a moment, I let myself believe this was him opening up more, even just a little. But then he told me the real reason he called. He said he had just finished a biopsy. I remember my stomach dropping instantly. It felt like everything around me just went quiet. He explained that he hadn't told me about the doctor visits leading up to it, or even about the bump he had found on his body that made him go in the first place. His reasoning was that he didn't want to worry me, especially because cancer has been such a heavy part of my life. My family has been affected by it for years, and I lost my mom to it just this past year. Hearing that, knowing he went through all of that alone without telling me, hurt in a way I didn't even know how to express. But then, almost immediately, he downplayed it. He said it wasn't a big deal, that the doctor told him it was most likely something related to a blood vessel, that he wasn't worried about it at all. He kept repeating that it was fine, that I shouldn't dwell on it, and that there was nothing to stress about. He said he'd get the results back in 2 weeks. I didn't know how to respond in that moment. Part of me wanted to ask more questions, to understand everything, to be there for him in a deeper way. But another part of me, honestly, the louder part, just remembered all the times I had tried to do exactly that before. Every time I've tried to read between the lines, to check in emotionally, to go a little deeper when something felt important, it's backfired. He's told me not to assume how he's feeling. He's told me to just take what he says at face value. He's told me that if something is important, I should just know because it's common sense, or that I should simply believe him when he says something is fine. So this time I did exactly that. I put the date for his results in my calendar, and after that, I just left it alone. I didn't bring it up again. I didn't ask how he was feeling. I didn't check in emotionally the way I normally would. And honestly, part of that decision came from exhaustion. I'm tired of constantly being emotionally available, constantly trying to bridge a gap that he doesn't seem interested in closing. It feels like I'm always the one doing the work, reading between the lines, asking the questions, creating space for deeper conversations, while he gives me very little in return. So I told myself, okay, if he says it's fine, then it's fine. If he doesn't want to talk about it, then it's not my place to push him. Maybe this is what he needs. Maybe this is how he feels comfortable. And maybe if I stop pushing, I won't push him away. Yesterday, I saw him in person. Everything felt normal on the surface. We talked, we spent some time together, nothing out of the ordinary. Before he left, I asked him if he might want to spend time together again today. Even that felt like a small risk because he rarely initiates plans. It's almost always me asking, me suggesting, me trying to carve out time for us. He said, I'd have to see how my day looks. Then he went on to explain his loose schedule, things he had to take care of in the morning and afternoon. And in the middle of that, he casually mentioned that he had his appointment to get the biopsy results. I just said, okay. We hugged, we kissed, and then he left. I called him later that evening because I needed some kind of clarity. If he was free the next day, I had to arrange something for my little brother since I'm the one taking care of him now that my mom's gone. I can't just be spontaneous like that anymore. I need a plan. So I asked him if he could confirm whether he'd be free or not. And just like before, he said, I can't really tell you that. I gotta see how I feel. Normally, I would have just taken that at face value. He's said that line so many times before, and usually it just means he doesn't know if he'll have the energy to hang out. Even if it's just coming over my place, he treats it like something he has to mentally prepare for. I've gotten used to that. But this time felt different. I knew what the next day was. It was the day he was supposed to get his biopsy results. So suddenly, his usual vague answer didn't feel so simple anymore. I couldn't tell if he literally meant he didn't know if he'd feel like seeing me, or if he was indirectly saying that everything depended on what those results were. And that's the problem. I'm always left guessing. So I tried to clarify. I asked him, do you mean you have to see if you feel like it, or is that oversimplifying it? He said yes, like that was the answer. Then he went quiet. There was this pause, and I could feel the shift in his energy even through the phone. A few seconds later, he admitted that he had just said yes in the moment because my question annoyed him, and he needed a second to calm down. That's when everything escalated. He told me he was actually upset that I didn't immediately understand what he meant. That when he said, I'll see how I feel, it should have been obvious that he was talking about how he'd feel after getting his test results. That if the results were bad, he wouldn't want to see me or anyone. I just sat there trying to process that, because how was I supposed to know that? He had already told me multiple times that the biopsy wasn't a big deal, that it was probably nothing, that I shouldn't dwell on it. So I took him at his word. I respected what he said instead of reading into it. And now I'm being told that I should have done the exact opposite. So I asked him, as calmly as I could, why he didn't just say that in the first place. Why not just tell me, hey, I'm waiting on my results, and depending on what they are, I might not feel up to seeing anyone. It would have taken 2 seconds. No confusion. No guessing. No frustration. But instead, he defaulted to the same thing he always says. It's common sense. That phrase just drains me at this point. Because to him, it's common sense. But to me, it's not. Not when he's actively telling me there's nothing to worry about. Not when he downplays everything. Not when he gives me vague, open-ended statements and expects me to fill in the blanks correctly every single time. And I told him that. I told him it's not fair for me to have to regulate my own emotions, respect his boundaries, and then also play detective trying to figure out what he actually means underneath everything he says. That I shouldn't have to constantly decode him just to be a good partner. At some point, it stops feeling like a relationship. It starts feeling like I'm doing all the emotional labor for both of us. I even tried to explain my perspective. I told him that there are people like me who, if they were getting important medical results, would want their partner there. That maybe I thought he'd still want to see me regardless, because sometimes support matters more in those moments. But before I could even finish that thought, he cut me off. Yeah, my family, they don't even know about any of this. That sentence hit me harder than I expected, because it wasn't just about the biopsy anymore. It wasn't just about communication. It was about where I stand in his life. If he hasn't told his family, fine. That's his choice. But the way he said it, it felt like I was being placed even further outside of that circle. Like I wasn't someone he turns to when things matter. Like I wasn't someone he considers part of his support system at all. And that hurt. It made me feel like I've been trying so hard to show up for someone who doesn't actually want me there in the ways that count. And that really stung. Not because he'd want to be around his family in a situation like that. I understand that completely. If anything serious were happening, of course you'd want to be around the people who feel like home to you. That's not what hurt. What hurt is realizing that he doesn't see me as that. It hit me all at once that he doesn't view me as an emotional safe space. And maybe the truth is, he doesn't see anyone that way, which is honestly heartbreaking on its own. But I can't ignore the fact that I'm his partner. If there's anyone he should feel safe opening up to, I always thought it would be me. And the way he said it, yeah, my family, it wasn't gentle or thoughtful. It felt blunt, dismissive, like it should have been obvious to me. Like it was a no duh, of course I'd go to them, not you kind of moment. But it's not obvious to me. Because I don't have that. My family is gone. When things get hard, I don't have parents or siblings to fall back on. My support system is small and carefully built, my boyfriend, my godmother, and a few close friends. So when something heavy happens, I lean on the people I love. I don't shut them out. So hearing him say that made me feel like I was standing outside a door that was never going to open for me. After that call, things didn't just end there. We ended up arguing over text for hours. It wasn't explosive. There was no yelling, no name calling. We don't do that. In a lot of ways, our relationship is healthy. But communication isn't a small issue. It's starting to feel like the issue. When I called him originally, he had said he needed to hang up because he was too annoyed and needed to calm down. So we switched to texting, and it just dragged on. Back and forth, trying to explain, trying to be heard, and somehow still missing each other. It took him hours to soften. Literal hours. I found myself apologizing, not because I felt entirely wrong, but because I knew I had mirrored his behavior. I had tried to be nonchalant and detached about something that was actually serious, and that's not who I am. I'm emotional. I'm caring. I show up. And in trying to match his energy, I ended up being someone I didn't recognize. So I apologize for that. For being insensitive to something that was clearly weighing on him, even if he wouldn't fully admit it. Toward the end of the conversation, he finally started opening up a little. And one of the things he said stuck with me. He told me, in a situation like that, I'm not trying to hear about communication improvements in the moment because I'll probably dissociate. That word, dissociate, made everything feel heavier. Because it means this isn't just stubbornness or bad habits. It's deeper than that. It's tied to trauma. He even admitted that himself. He said he knows he behaves the way he does because of it, and that he would never want me to try to act like him. And I get that. I really do. But at the same time, where does that leave me? Because I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from feeling like I'm constantly reaching out and getting nothing back. From trying to connect with someone who only seems comfortable when things are light and easy. From feeling like any attempt at emotional depth is either shut down, misunderstood, or turned into something I'm doing wrong. I don't want to fix him. I don't expect him to suddenly become someone he's not. But I do need something. Some level of emotional presence. Some willingness to meet me halfway. Right now, it feels like I'm the only one doing that. And I don't know how long I can keep doing it without losing myself in the process. So now I'm stuck here, wondering what my next move is supposed to be. How do I love someone who doesn't know how to let themselves be loved in return? How do I stay patient and understanding of his trauma, while also honoring my own needs for connection, communication, and emotional safety? And most of all, how do I stop feeling so alone in a relationship that's supposed to make me feel supported?